What if the most dangerous rating in cinema was also its most creative? In the 1970s, X didn't just mean explicit, it meant total, unhinged freedom. So for the next few minutes, we're diving into the loose, lively, and lecherous world of 70s comedy that Hollywood would never dare to make today. We start with perhaps the most fabulously inventive film of the era, Russ Meyer's Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. This wasn't some underground indie flick. It was financed by 20th Century Fox, who had initially expected something closer to a standard sequel to The Sugary Valley of the Dolls. Instead, they got a script co-written by, of all people, legendary film critic Roger Ebert. Meyer and Ebert crafted something truly bizarre, a mix of over-the-top melodrama, Hollywood satire, skin picture, and violent exploitation. The plot follows a girl group, Kelly, Casey, and Petronella, as they head to Los Angeles in search of fame, while Kelly also hopes to connect with her Aunt Susan and claim an inheritance. They are discovered by a record producer named Z-Man, who renames them the Carrie Nations and promises them stardom. What follows is an assault on the viewer, crammed with drug-fueled parties, an abortion subplot, a lesbian affair, and bizarre plot twists. It all culminates in a wild, psychedelic melee where a gender-bending secret about Z-Man is revealed before he goes on a killing spree. Despite its cheesy ending, Meyer used the film as a vessel for his trademark corny moralizing. Remarkably, this experiment became a major hit, earning many times back its roughly $1 million budget. It is impossible to discuss the X-rated landscape of the 70s without addressing the legendary catastrophe that is Myra Breckinridge. Constantly featured on lists of the worst films ever made, and not without reason, the movie is essentially a $5 million homoerotic gag played on the audience and the studio. Based on the Gore Vidal novel and starring Raquel Welch, the story follows Myra Breckinridge, Rex Reed, who undergoes a sex change performed by Dr. John Carradine to transform into Myra. For no particular reason, she decides to teach cinema lovemaking at a phony dramatic school run by her uncle. The film is an agonizing 94 minutes of unfathomable cameos, including Mae West singing Hard to Handle and talking about establishing a boy bank where credit is always good. It features shocking sequences for the time, such as Welch bedding Farrah Fawcett and strapping on a dildo to sodomize a male lover. Myra's stated goal is the destruction of the last vestigial traces of traditional manhood from the race, but as a film, it is truly a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. In 1972, the X rating broke a new barrier: animation. Ralph Bakshi's Fritz the Cat, based on the comics by Robert Crumb, was the first animated feature to receive an X certificate in the USA. This wasn't for kids, it was a seminal counterculture movie that used a perverted cartoon cat to explore the counterculture, the sexual revolution, racial tensions, and the general social chaos of the era. The film follows Fritz as he seeks to seduce women through soulful guitar playing and wild bathtub orgies. The plot is a chaotic journey through the 70s underground. Fritz shoots up a toilet, hides in a synagogue, falls in with Big Bertha in Harlem, and eventually incites a riot. The third act turns very dark out west, where Fritz gets tangled up with radicals and explosives and nearly blows himself to pieces. The curiosity surrounding its perverted cartoon sex helped turn it into a major international success. It proved that animation could be just as strong and radical as any live-action film of the era. Moving to Europe, we encounter Marco Ferreri's The Big Feast, a Franco-Italian production starring titans of cinema like Marcello Mastroianni, Michel Piccoli, Philippe Noiret, and Ugo Tognazzi. It is the ultimate satire of the bourgeoisie, a story of four jaded men who decide to commit suicide by eating, drinking, and shagging themselves to death in a large house. The film is notorious for its scatology, toilet humor, and sexual excesses. It features scenes of an exploding toilet spewing human excrement and a character dying while Andrea, a local schoolteacher, sexually pleasures him. It's a cult badge of extreme naughtiness that later carried an NC-17 rating in the United States through sheer grotesque commitment to its premise. Before Saturday Night Live dominated the airwaves, there was the Groove Tube. Directed by Ken Shapiro, this was a bawdy and bright collection of videotaped skits that satirized the mass minds satisfied by television. It's a tasteless and sometimes very funny review that features Coco the Clown, a kiddie show that changes when the adults leave, and an international sex game playoffs. While not for prudes, Shapiro's work showed a very nice gift for seeing the oddball possibilities in television's triteness. It represents the more experimental, loose and lively side of 70s adult comedy, satire that was a little lecherous but grounded in original talent. Finally, we must talk about the Prince of Puke, John Waters. Pink Flamingos opens on a trailer home, and that instantly tells you what kind of nightmare John Waters is inviting you into. The film follows Divine's determination to defend the tabloid title of the filthiest person alive against Connie and Raymond Marble, two rivals whose criminal enterprise is a depraved checklist of every extreme social taboo imaginable. Around that rivalry, Waters piles on one grotesque set piece after another: sexual humiliation, furniture violations, a mother in a playpen, and of course the infamous finale with the dog droppings. Pink Flamingos is not just trash cinema, it is trash cinema pushed to its absolute limit, and that is exactly what made it legendary. Female Trouble keeps the same filthy spirit that made John Waters and Divine such a perfect match, but packages it in a slightly more accessible form. Divine plays Dawn Davenport, a teenage delinquent whose whole life goes off the rails because her parents refuse to buy her the cha-cha heels she wants for Christmas. That setup alone tells you exactly what kind of movie this is. Dawn doesn't just rebel, she turns her entire existence into a parade of bad decisions, vulgarity, vanity, and criminal chaos. The film keeps pushing her further into madness, but it does it with such commitment that the whole thing lands in that perfect space between shocking and hilarious. It may not be as outright disgusting as Pink Flamingos, but Waters' taste for outrage is still all over it, along with the hyperbolic dialogue and campy performances that became his trademark. Female Trouble is nasty, ridiculous, and very funny, but it is also one of the easiest entry points into Waters' world. Desperate Living takes John Waters' universe and drops it into something closer to a diseased fairy tale. The film begins in suburban Baltimore, where the deeply unstable Peggy Gravel and her maid Griselda Brown kill Peggy's husband and go on the run. That leads them to Mortville, a lawless shantytown where murderers, sexual outcasts, and every other kind of misfit live under the vicious rule of Queen Carlotta and her leather-clad enforcers. From there, the movie becomes a full-scale descent into filth, cruelty, and absurdity. Divine does not appear here, reportedly because of a stage commitment, and even without that familiar centerpiece, Desperate Living still feels unmistakably like Waters.